I just being here. I've lived around here my whole life, and I've actually never river rafted.
My views and perspectives are definitely changing. Starting to realize how many problems there are with some of these trees.
My high was definitely when Richard let us row the boat for a while. That was really cool. I've never been on a river trip, and being able to figure out the dynamics of that was cool.
I'm here basically because I needed a change, a huge change. I really had no idea what I was getting myself into, but it's been good. It will allow me to grow and be a better person.
My low was when McKenna and I were crawling through that evil Queen's Forest and thinking for a minute if maybe it knows what we do for a living.
It looks more intimidating than it is if you actually follow it down with your eyes, down at the trunk. It's actually very doable.
General safety concerns?
Stay hydrated.
If you're sawing, talk to your sawyer about how you want to communicate.
I love seeing crew leaders and crew members come together, form into community, family type units, learn each other's highs and lows, learn how to take care of and respect each other in hopes of repairing the riparian system of the Dolores and its tributaries.
So I'm glad that we're finally starting and we're on our hitch cycle. I don't know, it feels like we're finally getting underway with the season here, so I'm really excited about that.
Start from the dam, the seed source, and work your way down, because it's not going to do you any good if you start all the way at the bottom and then all the seeds can just go right down the river and replant and start it all over again.
And it runs into the Dolores. So you really have to start with as much as you can that would repopulate the Dolores after we finished with it.
It was definitely no longer just like cutting giant, easy to cut tamarisk. It was like tamarisk and willows all in the same, and I'm feeling like I'm just killing my own guys while trying to cut down the tamarisk. It was definitely a little bit harder, but still rewarding all the same once you get through that tragedy.
Like when we first heard about disappointment, it was from people who'd been here before, and they're like, oh, it's hell. Disappointment Valley. It's horrible. And you get here and you're like, all right, it's not as dense as it could be. It's not as bad as it could be. It's actually rather beautiful.
We're just going to walk up the road, and then that'll take us back to where we'd been hiking down. And then this is the wall section that we had spent the last 2 days on before. And Richard has floated the river raft down to right here. This is private property. It's really important that we pay attention to this private property line. These people do not want us on their land. Okay.
I'm disconcertingly near the water right now.
3, paddle backward strong.
We, with just chainsaws and sprayers, are making much lower impact than a helicopter coming around spraying chemicals over acres at a time, or like some heavy equipment coming up and just like ripping a path through down by the riverside. Whereas we can come in and go through and see like one, tamarisk stand or something in the sea of native species.
Not only if you used heavy machinery would you be, like he was saying, wiping out all the native species that we're trying to protect and allow to revegetate, but you'd also be applying Garlon to those species and letting them suck it down to the root ball and taking them down as well on that level.
With the helicopter method, or disturbing and making roads with the heavy machinery method, it is mostly invasives that tend to come back in disturbed soils afterwards. So the end goal is actually further away if you were to come in a really high impact manner.
People think just one approach is going to work, but really it's a combination of every approach.
In the spirit of Ned Ludd and the Luddites, mechanization just takes more of our jobs from us.
Someone else gets this all, I hope they just take care of it.
A relatively cheap labor with kind of an end goal that's a little more than just the work. a little more on development.
Have you noticed when you look out in the canyon how much more beautiful it is?
A lot of people don't really come from the greatest homes or whatever, you know, and just being in a group with people that enjoy the same things as you and finding stuff in common with them, you know, having a place where you can be yourself.
I've gotten a lot of opportunity to be able to travel and do a lot of things that I wouldn't normally be able to do, and be able to grow and actually do something that's, I feel, is pretty worthwhile.
A lot of the removal prior to this years ago was all aesthetic removal. Let's clear some places so we can see the river. Let's clear these little small corridors or small trails so we can get to the river. And now we're talking about entire ecosystems. We're talking about doing work that will change river channels back to their native states.
What we do out here is being echoed by 50 different corps across the country.
We're trying to take leaps and bounds to essentially take the isolation out of this type of work to a point of putting it into the public eye.
You get a lot more people coming up and thanking the crew. Now they know what we're doing, whereas before they're like, you know, why are you cutting those trees? Why are you spraying herbicide? Now they're coming up and they're like, you know, yeah, get all that tamarisk out of here. We don't want it. So that's really great to have people behind us now.
The USDA has discontinued its program for release in 13 northwestern states over the concern of the southwest willow flycatcher.
The key conundrum here is that the willow flycatcher has gone from living in willows and adapting to living in tamarack.
What we're seeing now is these are totally defoliated, but upstream they have started to refoliate. So the beetles have probably been moving down like a front. They can have two life cycles in one season, but then come around the middle of September they will bury the adults will then bury themselves again in the duff and winter over. So that's their life cycle.
So I'm crossing my fingers as an ecologist that it can move over, it will seed in and give us a few years and we'll have canopy cover that's suitable for flycatchers. They're always in opposite oscillations, and so we will have times when the tamarisk is higher and the beetle are lower, and then the beetle will come up higher and they'll eat all their food, and they're going to be bouncing this way all the time.
Make sure to use your chain brake if you're moving a significant distance.
Watch your dime. Make sure people around you are a good distance away from chainsaw.
Be aware of where you're stepping. If you don't need to go traipsing through this pile of cactus and crypto, go around it. Stick to the sand. Don't get in a rush where you're killing just as much good stuff as you are tamarisk.
Learning about what we're actually doing from the river trip and now being in the middle of it, in the midst of it, and actually doing what we were talking about it's pretty cool. It's really intense. It's very intense, I think.
I've been sitting in a raft talking about the tamarisk for the last 3 years, and I mean that's important too, telling people. But now I'm actually doing something. I'm in the action stage after being a river rat for the last few years.
I was here in the spring. It was pretty bad. After I came here today, there's definitely a lot more green vegetation.
So I'm excited to see these holes grow bigger. Like the fire that is our chainsaw spread throughout that riverbank and just eliminate the tamarisk. When you step back and look at the future plan, it's quite large, and it's really kind of exciting to think about. Cleaning up an entire ecosystem, and not just this river, but the river that it feeds into, and then the other rivers that feed into it as well. And that's a lot of miles of river that we're working on right now, just by being right here. It's very cool. I am still in awe of the Dolores River. I love it. I think it's beautiful. It's so quiet. walking to work every morning as the sun was rising. You would get what I call the morning chorus. You would hear nothing but birds. We saw coyote, bighorns, pronghorns, deer sign. It was just quiet and remote. And every day and every job site was more and more beautiful up until the last one. It is one of the most remote, most beautiful places that I've worked at, and I'm counting down the days till the spring so I can try and throw a boat on there just to soak it up even more.
The Dolores River is going to be, for the rest of my life, one of the most unique and beautiful places that I've ever been able to work and live.
That's what I can take away from it, is more respect for riverways and bodies of water and how much we depend on them.
The fact that we were respecting the river kind of, in a sense, allows the environment that we were working in to respect us, and it felt really welcoming to be there and to work there. So it was an awesome feeling.
My relationship with Dolores is just inseparable from the relationship that I've had with the people out there. People really down to their essence and down to their core.
I've seen spring change to summer there. I've seen summer change to fall there. I was a crew member. I was a crew leader. I've seen tamarisk there. I've cut down tamarisk there. After you've put hundreds of hours of your blood, sweat, and tears and hard work into one thing, you can't leave without really coming to care about it. I care about the Dolores River.
Got a lot of love for the Dolores area and the river and just my crew members and leaders, and probably love them as much as my chainsaw. And that's a lot of love right there.
I wrote a letter from the river to the crew just saying thank you.
As the river?
As the river, yeah, just saying thank you for getting rid of all this invasive species and letting me kind of take over again. I want to go back and see it. I'd really like to go back and just see some of the work we've done and if there's been any regrowth.
Snaps.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you guys.